Today we're talking about SMITE's Battle Pass. First from the perspective of what we currently have, and then also from the perspective of what changes we're getting. So a Reddit user called Idiosyncrasy, I hope I'm saying that right, made a post called Battle Pass is getting ridiculous. And in this post, he or she made some calculations regarding how the pass currently is and how it used to be and everything. So the total amount of points needed for the Battle Pass now is 208,000, so roughly 100,000 for each track. It used to be 60,000 and 80,000 at some point for previous Battle Passes, I'm assuming, but it's getting more. And the same user also made some calculations regarding the amount of points you need or the amount of time you need to spend. You get roughly 400 battle points for an arena game, so roughly 18 minutes of gameplay. So if you divide the 200,000 points by 400, then you would need 500 games played for the Battle Pass. That already sounds like quite a lot to me. Of course, this might be slightly different if you're, for example, playing a lot of long conquest games. But we can also just go with the time here. If we spend 500 times 18 minutes, we'd have 9,000 minutes spent on playing this, or 150 hours for the Battle Pass. Per day, you would have to get 3,336 points, which means you would have to play for roughly 2.5 hours each day. This can be shortened down a fair bit by using Battle Pass boosters or double battle points weekends or whatever, but the essential point here is that you will spend more than 100 hours on the Battle Pass at least, and it's going to be a lot of work. Now the whole thing is pretty complicated. The Reddit poster here had some concerns about the health of players that are forced to play 2.5 hours every day. Some of you may laugh about that because they play way more Smite, and some of you may say that's a valid concern. I personally would say that from a health perspective alone, not claiming that I'm always living healthy, playing 2.5 hours every single day doesn't sound that great. Not so much because I think 2.5 hours are terrible, but rather because there will be days where you simply won't be able to play. There is just times where life gets in the way, and then that means on another day you already have to play 5 hours, and fitting 5 hours into the day is hard, and it gets even harder when you consider that this does not include queue time. This is just the time you spend in game, and then the time really ramps up at that point because a lot of regions have a lot of queue time, and even the region that are more popular will still have some time spent in queue and in lobby. And from here on out, things complicate even further. The extra content for the Battle Pass, being that extra sweet grind skin, is something that was actually requested by a part of the community. With the first Battle Passes, they needed 76,000 to 85,000 points. People were complaining that they were too easy. They were saying that they were finished with them too quickly and that there wasn't enough in them, basically. And that again is an issue of different types of playstyles. I'm sure somebody who is still in school and can spend most of their afternoon playing the game every single game will have no issue ever completing the Battle Pass at all, and probably will not have an issue now either. For that type of person, it may in fact feel like there's not enough content in the Battle Pass. For somebody who works a 9-to-5 job or even more hours, that's not the same story. Of course, you have the option to buy more of the Battle Pass, and that I think is kind of the idea here. Somebody who has less time to invest into Smite because they're working should be able to spend more on Smite. That is something that doesn't necessarily ring true in the end, because depending on how much you're working and what you're working for, you may need your money for other things. You may barely be scraping by and just having a bit of enjoyment time with Smite, but then at the same time, maybe you shouldn't invest in the Battle Pass in the first place at that point. But even then, getting all the way to the end of the prestige path will be very expensive. So we have a clash of interest here. We have people that just play very, very casually, and we have people that play every day and very frequently, and both want to utilize the Battle Pass, but you can't really satisfy both at the current rate. Sure, there would be options here to, for example, add something like in World of Warcraft, you have a rested XP bonus if you haven't played for a while, and you could give people a way to get double battle points until a certain point if they don't play frequently. But then HiRez also wants you to encourage to buy more of the Battle Pass or play the game more, so that wouldn't really benefit them that much. But Titan Isaiah has responded to this post and has given some more insight. Outside of some of the numbers that I've already used, he also mentioned that Sweet Victory's Battle Pass is actually 85,000 battle points, so not quite 100, and the Prestige Path is then 122,000. Ends up being the roughly same number, but it's a bit of a different split, so it's a bit easier to fulfill the normal battle path, and it's really the Prestige Path that makes things way more tedious and way more grindy, and that was kind of implied from the start. The problem is that people didn't really get that impression from how the battle pass was laid out. It felt more like the last reward of the Prestige Path was the final reward of the battle path, and that's where you needed to get to, rather than that being a bonus reward, even though it was called that. An issue that factored in that regard is that the final reward of the Prestige Path was limited. Limited skins means that those will never be available after their initial release, like for example the tier 5 skins, or if they become available only under very, very specific conditions, like say for example the Spring Fling. So what in a way was created here was the fear of missing out, a marketing term used for products that are only available for a while, something that HiRez uses quite frequently, but in this case it's even worse because you have to grind so much for this particular thing, or you have to spend so much for it. We've got some good news though. That's going to be changed for the next battle pass. So the next battle path is the Pirate Queens one, and this one actually has some pretty cool skins, to be honest, and it will be adjusted in multiple ways. So the first part of the path will still be 85,000 battle points, which is only a little bit more than the first two battle passes we had with 76,900 points, and it's the same as New Olympia or Sweet Victory. In addition to that, the Prestige Path will not scale up any higher. In the current one, again, that is roughly 40,000 extra, and in the next one it will be another 85,000. So you just do the exact same grind as you did for the battle pass. And I think that will feel a lot more fair. You're just doing a run of the same thing again, and you know how many points you're going to need for the next step based on what you experienced in your first run, and you end up at the same reward, or at the last reward that way. Or actually, it's even faster. You may remember that you actually get permanent boosters during the first part of the battle pass, the normal path, but these extra boosters remain active for the entire Prestige Path. As you don't have these boosters at the start of the initial battle pass, the second path will actually feel faster. And if I have to say path and pass one more time, I'm gonna stop the video. On top of all that, HiRez also decided to make the final skin, being the Pirate Queen chang'e, exclusive instead of limited, meaning that she will become available again at a future point. We'll see how exactly that will happen. Typically, exclusive skins eventually find their way into chests somehow. I'm not quite sure if that would be an option here, considering this skin needs a lot more effort than an average skin, or would cost a lot more than an average skin. So maybe there's some other solution that they will have specifically for this skin. Maybe eventually we'll get it through the daily bundle or something, but again, I don't quite know how it's gonna work out, how it's gonna be fair. And HiRez doesn't quite know either. They said, we know that some players have expressed that not having a limited skin reduces the reward of being a collector. We're looking into options so that players can have the best of both worlds in future passes. I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to work, but maybe they come up with something creative. I could imagine that maybe you get an extra badge or an extra effect or something, maybe a backing animation or something for completing the second path that really indicates you went all the way, but the skin remains exclusive. Or maybe that they actually do the thing where they put 3 different versions of a skin out and give you the normal version at the end of the battle pass, and then an exclusive and limited version at the end of the Prestige Path. But that would also mean 3 different colored versions of the same skin, so I'm really not sure if that's what they want to go with. We'll see how that turns out. I'm glad they're lowering the grind a little bit, even though I think the battle pass will still be relatively grindy. But we also have some other news. HiRez posted a full list of the Odyssey rewards without revealing exact details, but we know which gods are getting skins now, and I think that's pretty cool to know beforehand. So in the Odyssey, the gods that get a skin that you can buy are Persephone, Xingtian, Neith, of course, Thor, of course, Scylla, Osiris, Pele, surprisingly again, Apollo, Achilles, Mercury, the goddess of demonetization, Jormungandr, and Izanami. In addition to that, some other rewards already showed up on the PTS. If you went on the Odyssey itself, it would show you the rewards that you get for buying a certain amount of skins, or rather unlocking a certain amount of points. One of these is Wise Wizard Merlin, which seems to be like an older kind of version of Merlin probably, at least he's gonna wear a wizard hat. And the other one is one that you may actually be familiar with, because it is a Ganesh skin called Mouse Force. This skin was actually in competition for the tier 5 skin once, but didn't make it. However, HiRez said they might explore the idea of the skin at a later point, and they did. And I honestly thought that skin looked pretty cool. So I like the idea of this making it into the Battle Pass, and I actually like that it's not going to be a tier 5, but rather just this robot elephant with a mouse as a pilot. Some of you who watch the patch notes may know this already, but you'll also be able to buy the entire Battle Pass right away and get the final reward from the start and then unlock the skins as the weeks go on. If you do this right at the start, you get the discounted price for every item, so you will pay 8,800 gems. If you wait until week 2, then you're going to pay 9,000 gems. So if you're intending to get the final reward, this is a more convenient way to do it. And that is it in terms of news for Battle Passes and Odyssey and various paths. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was interesting and insightful. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. And other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth, out.